The West, that wonderfully creative, dazzling, colourful 13% chunk of humanity, still dominates headlines for its skill in technology, culture, and so on. Now, those are the headlines, but what does the data say? It tells a more worrying tale about the decline of Western society, particularly in the US and the UK. So here are some numbers. You decide. Life expectancy in the United States has fallen from almost 79 4 years ago to about 76 now. In poorer parts of the UK, life expectancy has fallen below 75 for women, while men die in their 60s. For comparison, the longevity rate in China is 77, and the world's top score is in Hong Kong, where people live for 85 years. What about minority groups? In the US, Native Americans can expect to live to just 65. While in China, the population of Xinjiang has a life expectancy of 72. Second, there's a tragic rise in rates of death of young people in the United States. In every classroom of 25 kids, one will die before they're 40. They're not dying of disease, but of societal factors, which is that's a real worry. Third, we think of the 1960s as the time when the West experimented with drugs. But the stats show that substance abuse has grown on an exponential scale from the 1970s to now. It's not just the US too. In the UK, substance abuse is at the highest level since records began. Fourth, crime is rising in the West. There's been a dramatic uptick in murder over the last few years in the United States. In England and Wales, recorded crime hit a 20-year high last year, and the proportion of offences leading to court action fell to a record low. Fifth, there's a widespread rise in rates of depression, and this can be seen particularly strongly among US teenagers. In the United States, the suicide rate has risen by 30% since we began the present millennium. Sixth, the age of free market economics would bring prosperity to all people in the West, we're told. But instead, the cost of living soared, while the purchasing power of workers has hardly risen for the past 40 years. Now, that's the exact same period in which this tiny rural town in China transformed itself into Asia's tech capital. Seventh, de-dollarization has been trending as a topic, and it's no surprise why. The world has woken up to the fact that it's locked into an international trading system dominated by the currency of one country. Change will take a while, but it is necessary, and it is happening. Eighth, the response of the US to the impending loss of dominance has been to lash out against the East. For decades, America's standard operating procedure has been to go overseas and goad conflicts into being. This creates disunity, and it's done so just at the time when humans should be working together against climate change and microbial challenges. Now, the damage is harming the standing of the West, which has lost any moral high ground it ever had. Ninth, the West's adoption of free speech absolutism has led to the creation of societies awash with angry, polarizing polemics. What Westerners celebrate as the free press, Asians see as an over-permissive position with so little moderation that it creates anger and depression on a huge scale. And 10th, there's a loss of faith in higher education, particularly in the United States. 56% of Americans think college degrees are not worth the time and money, a recent survey showed. Only 42% still believe in them. In contrast, Asians continue to be completely obsessed with education, particularly science and math. In conclusion, let's remember surveys are just surveys and polls can be wrong. Yet all these figures about the West come from Western sources, and there's so much data from so many different sources that it does indicate that the underlying message of Western decline has some truth to it. On the plus side, we can hope that the shake-up will lead to a change of emphasis for the West, less of the excessive spending on militarization and more of a focus on what the West does brilliantly, such as art, culture, music, storytelling, books, business. At the moment, the opposite is happening. All the money is going to arms. So we need to look for the pendulum to swing the other way. Peace.